Fungi are among the most numerous and varied organisms on the planet. They reproduce by sending out millions of spores. And wherever those spores land, new fungi emerge. The part of the fungus that we can see, like the mushroom, is the reproductive body. Most of the action happens out of sight. Fungi survive on cells of other living things. Often they form symbiotic relationships with animals, plants, or algae. Relationships in which both partners benefit from the arrangement. This tree has been invaded by a fungus, which eats the dead matter inside the trunk, allowing more nutrients to go to the branches. By hollowing out the tree trunk, the fungus provides a home for bats, whose droppings help feed the tree. Fungi also help young trees grow. They attach to the roots of a seedling and send out hyphae, or finger-like threads that wrap themselves around the growing roots. This increases the reach of the roots and allows them to absorb more nutrients and water from the soil. This helps the little tree grow stronger, faster. In return, the tree feeds the fungus with the sugars it produces in the leaves. The fungus needs this food to survive and produce mushrooms. The relationship between fungi and algae is even more intertwined. The result of this partnership is lichens. There are more than 18,000 types which vary in size, shape, and color, but would not exist without the fungi and the algae bonding together. This is an animation of a lichen magnified 10,000 times. The round balls are the algae, and the threads are the hyphae of the fungi. This bond gives the lichen the ability to survive in the harshest places on Earth. Like a plant, the algae and the lichens have chlorophyll and are able to make food using the sun's energy. The fungi in the lichen protects it from drying out. This makes the lichen incredibly resistant to drought. They can live on the tiniest bits of moisture in the air to sustain themselves for long periods of time. When water is available, a lichen can rehydrate itself, absorbing as much as 35 times its weight in water. Water is available to many lichens for short periods of time, so they grow very slowly. Some lichens live hundreds of years and grow only inches in all that time. For those of us who live in northern climates, mosquitoes go hand in hand with summer. We've all been bitten, but the itchy red bumps go away in a few days, and we forget all about them. Until the next time we're bitten. Mosquitoes themselves are fairly harmless, but can transmit many diseases, including malaria, through their bite. In tropical climates, malaria is a plague. The cause of malaria is a protozoan of the genus Plasmodium, a single-celled organism with a nucleus. It is spread from one infected person to another through the bite of the female Anopheles mosquito. When the mosquito feeds on the blood of an infected person, it ingests the Plasmodium, which lodges in its gut and produces spores. The infected mosquito transmits those spores through its saliva, infecting each person it bites. Once bitten, the Plasmodium parasites multiply in the victim's blood. Then they travel to the liver, invade the cells, and multiply again. After 1 or 2 weeks, the parasites penetrate the red blood cells, where they multiply yet again, gradually breaking down the cells. The disease works in cycles, making a person ill with high fever and intense paroxysms or tremors for several days. Then, for a short while, the person feels better before the cycle starts all over again. Left untreated, the Plasmodium reaches such high numbers and inflicts such great damage to the blood and internal organs that the body is unable to fight. Many who contract the disease will die from it. Researcher Robert Hancock explains.
You may suffer these paroxysms for upwards of 30 hours. And if that's not enough, your body will have another day to recover, and then another cycle will start. And the people who die of this disease die of sheer exhaustion.
Malaria is now found in most tropical regions of the world, but the continent of Africa is hardest hit. Close to 90% of the world's malaria cases occur in Africa. Worldwide, more than 120 million people each year contract malaria, and the disease is responsible for more than 1 million deaths. The push to slow the spread and ultimately wipe out this deadly disease is a race against time. Thousands of people are infected with malaria every day. Scientists predict that if the global warming trend continues and climates get milder, the dreaded malaria may invade our own country in the not-so-distant future. To look at them, you'd never know it, but these ants are fungus farmers. The leafcutter ants of South America are the epitome of teamwork. Living in colonies of several 100,000 to 1 million, each ant has a specific role to play within its colony. And each one of them depends on this fungus to survive. The relationship between the ants and the fungus is exclusive. Neither one is found in nature without the other. The ants cut discs out of leaves and carry them to underground nests. Then they shred them and use them for growing the fungus. Inside the huge subterranean fungus gardens, thousands of ants work to cultivate the fungus for food. The ants cannot digest the plant molecules in the leaves, but the fungus can, so it grows and provides a source of food for the ants. The fungus benefits from this arrangement too. The ants provide it with a constant supply of food. Each ant in the leafcutter ant colony has a specific job to do and knows how to do it instinctively. The largest ants are the gatherers. They brave the outside world to cut the discs out of leaves. Then they carry them back to the nest. The smaller ants take over. They shred the discs into minute pieces, mix them with their saliva, and add them to the garden. The smallest ants care for the fungus garden. They transplant bits of fungus from an older part of the garden to the newer part to promote growth. They add their saliva to the garden and walk over it constantly. The ants harvest the fungus before it begins to sprout into mushrooms. They gather it and feed it to their larvae or eat it themselves. In this amazing colony, each individual type of ant works for the good of the group, and fungi are an essential element of these ants' survival. This symbiotic relationship benefits both the ants and the fungi. Nature is full of such relationships, and the survival of many animal, plant, and fungus species depends on them. The health of our waters and the thousands of species that live in them depend on algae. Some species of algae serve as the energy producer at the bottom of the food chain, providing food for the other species in the ecosystem. Sometimes, environmental and artificial factors trigger the algae to bloom or grow and multiply unnaturally fast. When a bloom occurs, it can become harmful, even deadly, for fish and many other forms of life. Fisteria Piscicida, a Latin name for fish killer, is a single-celled organism that wreaks havoc in some coastal waters. Most of the time, Fisteria lives in a non-toxic state, but when the water conditions are just right, Fisteria can become deadly. Fisteria cells adhere to the fish, causing bleeding lesions to appear. A strong neurotoxin is released that stuns the fish, and soon they die in alarming numbers. But Fisteria is not only deadly to fish, it's harmful to people too. Doctors noticed that fishermen and those who worked on the water developed sores on their bodies during the Fisteria outbreaks. Dr. Chris Delaney has treated many watermen with problems related to Fisteria.
Folks who lived and worked on the river who had exposure to the water were coming in with skin lesions, coin-shaped lesions that looked almost like blisters that had popped. The wounds that I have seen on patients had a remarkable similarity to those seen on fish.
When Dr. Joanne Burkholder began to study Fisteria, she didn't know just how much damage it could cause.
I then proceeded to do an experiment in which I was working with it for about 4 hours in very close quarters, pouring beakers that were up close to my face. And all I can tell you is that I remember basically how I went into the room, and I don't remember very much afterward. I have a slow motion image remembrance of my gloved hand coming up to my eye. It was dripping with toxin-laden water, and I was rubbing my eyes because my eyes were burning really badly. I had lost the sense that something was wrong.
Though Fisteria cannot live inside the human body, scientists knew that it could become airborne. If enough is breathed in, the nervous system could suffer from serious damage. Through her research, Dr. Burkholder uncovered important information about Fisteria. But how to prevent the otherwise harmless protozoa from blooming and becoming a toxic killer remains a mystery. The health of our planet's waters require a delicate balance. When the balance is disturbed, some algae and other organisms that sustain a variety of species may become deadly. Scientists are still searching for how and why. We may not know it, but fungi live all around us. Fungi are organisms that live on organic matter and are as commonplace inside as they are outside. Molds are microscopic fungi. They live in the air we breathe, in our refrigerators, in the shower, practically everywhere. There is even fungi living on your toothbrush right now. But molds and fungi aren't all bad. Many are beneficial, some even tasty. Mushrooms are fungi, and some of our favorite cheeses could not exist without fungi. If it weren't for yeast, a member of the fungus family, bread wouldn't rise. But leave food out too long and the fungi take over. Much the same way fungus absorbs this pizza, it kills bacteria. In fact, a fungus was responsible for the first modern antibiotic. Penicillium notatum was first isolated in England in 1929. The story goes that a British researcher, Alexander Fleming, accidentally allowed a fungus to develop on a bacteria-covered petri dish. He soon noticed that the fungus prevented the bacteria from growing. It secretes a substance, penicillin, that kills bacteria. Over the next few years, penicillin saved the lives of thousands of soldiers injured in World War II. Penicillin quickly became a miracle drug. Before its discovery, a person could die from the smallest cut or scrape. With antibiotics, doctors finally had the tools to ward off infections. Dr. Stan Falco explains.
In the 40s, when antibiotics really came into general use, there was such a kind of high that developed because we were taking things like streptococcal blood poisoning and pneumonias, gonorrhea, syphilis, and all of these things were being cured. It was a miracle.
Fungi are part of our world. Some are harmful, but some have the power to save lives.